In my previous videos, I've discussed several concepts. One of the primary concepts I've discussed is how the Bible seems to relate so much to our reality all around us, in our temples, in our numbering systems, in our art, in our music. The Bible seems to incorporate everything from our reality that we see today around us and somehow brings it all into a mythological framework. So I'm going to continue with that theme today. As you recall, I introduced you also when I was discussing the flat earth, motion and angular momentum. I also introduced the term of conservation of energy. So today I'm going to introduce you to other biblical concepts and the biblical references to our reality in science, in art, in geography, and mythology. So let's go. I'm going to start again with a puzzle, and I'm going to say or ask the question, what does Noah have in common with the concept of axial precession, which they call the precession of the equinoxes, the flower of life, and quantum physics? Again, conservation of energy, momentum, photoelectric effect. So that is going to be our inquiry for today. I'm going to introduce you to Karen Armstrong. She's one of my favorite theologians. I read her initial book many years ago called How the Irish Saved Christianity. Well, I've been following Karen sporadically and have really enjoyed her work. And what Karen Armstrong says, let me read this to you. Karen Armstrong, born November 44, is a British author and commentator of Irish Catholic descent, known for her books on comparative religion. A former Roman Catholic religious sister, she went from a conservative to a more liberal and mystical Christian faith. And what Karen Armstrong recently said in speaking about Islam and the Quran and how it's interpreted so literally by Western minds that they pick and choose their scriptures saying, well, the Quran says to decimate and kill all Christians, etc., etc. And how she responds to this is that in reading the Quran or reading the Bible or any religious text, she, as a Catholic, she was taught to interpret it on 4 different levels. And I know that the Jewish religion also states that the Bible should be interpreted on 4 levels in order to gain a comprehensive view of it. She states that the Bible, as a Catholic sister, she was taught to read on its mystical level. And then secondly, on the eschaton, I can't say that, but on the end times level or the Armageddon level. And then she says on the allegorical level and then on its plain meaning. And as you spiral up from plain meaning to allegorical to end times to the mystical, you gain a greater insight into the spiritual reality of our universe. So let's start with Noah. Oh my goodness. That's not the biblical Noah. That's Noah. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Who'da thunk? Okay, well, let's start with the biblical Noah as I know him. Noah. It's Noah. Anyway, just trying to chant his name. Like Karen Armstrong says, the Bible should be chanted as the sisters do in Catholic Mass. Anyway, so let's start with Noah. And I'm going to start with the Bible. So Noah, as we see in the Bible, is the son of Lamech. And Noah, at 500 years and 5 years, begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Lamech were 777 years. Remember, 777, the last Adam, Jesus Christ. And then, again, he died. And I'm sure you remember that Adam lived 930 years, and then he died. So it's quite sudden that they die after so many years of living. But then it goes on, and Noah was 500 years old, and Noah begat Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So Noah begat 3 sons. And then it goes on, and then it came to pass that the men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them. Now that's a significant line, because it just says that man began to multiply, and then they began to bear daughters. So first there were men, and then there were daughters. I wonder what that means. And then the sons of God saw the daughters. So the daughters were very fair, and these sons of man liked them and took them as wives. And then the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh. Yet his days shall be 120 years, which, to tell you the truth, is the natural age cycle of man. It's only because of our pollution and all the bad things we do to man that we are only living now about, on the average, 80 years. But my grandparents lived to close to 100, and I can go back in my family tree, and everyone in my family tree, as you go back in the generations, lived till close to 100. They died at 98. So why are we dying at 15 years earlier these days? And it's not because we have better medicine, but that's a different story. Again, I want to remind you that there's 4 levels of interpreting the Bible, and I'm not interpreting the Bible in its plain meaning. I'm interpreting it in the other 3 levels, and that's where the puzzle is. Now, I have been to plenty of talks by theologians in which they only teach the plain meaning or the literal meaning of the Bible, and they miss all the symbolic and the allegorical levels. And this is one of the verses that is taught very literally by the UFO community, by the born-again Christian communities. They believe this means that Zarathustra, or the Superman, is referred to in the Bibles, and this is what they say. And the Lord said that there were giants in the earth in those days, like there are real giants that lived in the earth. Giants can mean many things. We've got giant redwoods, we have giant mountains. It could mean a lot of things. And also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became known as the mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. Now, I know all you men out there like to think this is a very sexual passage, that when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, well, we know what that means when you come. Okay, when men come, we know what that means. And then they have children, which is logical, but then they bore these mighty men. Hail Zarathustra, the mighty men were born. And there's a lot of men that love that superhero kind of mythology, but, you know, that's comic book kind of theology. So I want you to kind of expand your knowledge and your ability to interpret God in the scriptures in its full 4 dimensions. So let's skip down to the next verse, or Genesis 7. And the Lord said unto Noah, Come thou and all thy house into an ark, for thee I have seen righteous before me in this generation. Of every clean beast thou shalt take thee by 7s. Remember, I only learned when I was young in Sunday school that he only took 2 of each beast, but he didn't. The Lord commanded Noah to take of 7 clean beasts, thou shalt take 7, and the male and the female. So 7 male clean beasts, 7 female clean beasts, and that which is not clean by 2s. So we've got 2 unclean males and 2 unclean females. And yet, let's skip down verse 4, For yet 7 days I will cause it to rain upon the earth, 40 days and 40 nights, and every living substance that I have made will I destroy from off the face of the earth. Okay, so if we're going to use the symbolic or the end times or the mystical levels, those numbers are very important. Now we've seen how 7s are very important number in the Bible, with Joseph and Adam, and you know, God created the world in 7 days. So 7 is very important, and we see it repeated here. But interesting, he's saying take 7 clean beasts, male and female, and 2 unclean, male and female. I wonder what that means. It means something. And I've got my opinion, but I would like you to come up with your opinion and see how it matches. But I will eventually tell you what I think this can refer to. Whether it does refer to it, I don't know. Okay, and then for 7 days, it rained 40 days and 40 nights. That would mean, I guess, 40 12-hour periods and 40 12-hour nights. So that's 24. So that's very interesting. So then it continues and it says, and Noah went in, and his sons, and his wife, and his sons' wives. So you see there are 4 males and 4 wives into the ark. And then they brought in the unclean and the clean beast and the fowl of the air and the creepy crawlies. They all went in. And then it came to pass that after 7 days that the waters of the flood were on the earth, in the 600th year of Noah's life, that's an important number, in the 2nd month and the 17th day. Okay, I'm going to eventually diagram that, but remember that. 600, 2 months is 30 days, 637, anyway, I'll figure it out later. So the rain of the earth, it rained 40 days and 40 nights, and then Noah and Shem and Ham and Japheth, the sons of Noah, and Noah's wife, and the 3 wives and the sons with them into the ark of every kind. And then when the floods ended, he did something interesting. And God remembered Noah and every living thing, and all the cattle that was with him in the ark. And God made the wind to pass over the earth, and the waters assuage, the fountain also of the deep, and the windows, the glass ceiling, the dome of the heavens were stopped, and the rain from heaven was restrained, and the waters returned from off the earth continually. And after the end of 150 days, the waters were abated. And then it goes on and it describes the 10th month and the 10th month, etc. Those are very interesting numbers also. But eventually I'm going to mark all these numbers and let you see what I have determined these numbers mean. And then what God finally told Noah, that God said unto Noah, this is 17, verse 17, this is the token of the covenant, which I have established between me and all flesh that is upon the earth. And the sons of Noah that went forth of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham is the father of Canaan. These are 3 sons of Noah, and of them was the whole earth overspread. And Noah began to be a husbandman and planted a vineyard, and he drank the wine, etc. And then we're going to go down and look at when Noah died, because it's a very important number, as we've seen, with Noah's father dying at a certain point, and Adam at 93. Well, Noah and all the days of Noah were 950 years. Very close to Adam, who lived 930 years. 950 years, and then he died. I want to remind you of another concept that I learned late in life, because my religious upbringing, we really didn't focus on these numbers. But in the Jewish faith and in the Torah, they preach the fact that the name of God is so important that if you utter it, you defile it. If you utter it, it makes it unclean. But occasionally, I believe on one day a year, the rabbis will utter the name of God, which is the tetragrammaton. And what does the tetragrammaton mean? It basically means, let's see, in Latin script, it is a 4-letter biblical name of God of Israel. The books of the Torah and the rest of the Hebrew Bible, with the exception of Esther, Ecclesiastes, and the Song of Songs, contain the Hebrew word, and that's the Hebrew word of 4 letters of the tetragrammaton, which, you know that tetra means 4, and a tetragrammaton is a 4-sided polygon. So we can also see that the tetragrammaton, which means 4 is so holy that it isn't even uttered by the rabbis of the Torah. The four representing God, and God, out of God, created everything, and God created everything in 6 days, and then he rested on the seventh. So everything happens on 6 days. Out of 4 comes 6, but on the seventh, he rests. And as we recall, Adam is the first generation, or the son of God, and God is identified by the number 4. Noah is number 10 in the generation, and of course, he was in the ark 40 days and 40 nights. So 40 days and 40 nights are very important to Noah, and there were 4 males and 4 females, out of which everything sprang, all of mankind, after the flood. So those numbers, again, very important. So then we go back to the flower of life. Just a reminder, the flower of life is a geometrical shape composed of multiple layers, evenly spaced circles overlapping, arranged in a flower-like pattern with a 6-fold symmetry like a hexagon. Hexagon. Put a hex on you. Well, interesting. It's called the flower of life, which is life, but also when somebody puts a hex on you, it's not very good. So the seed of life is formed from 7 circles being placed around the 6-fold flower. So out of 6 comes 7, and that's the egg of life. And then we are going to have Metatron's cube. And I don't know if you recall, but Metatron is a angel. An angel could be geometrically referenced there. He's an angel. Anyway, so Metatron's one of, I believe, the 7 angels, or someone's going to have to remind me of that. But these 5 structures are found in minerals, animated and organic, life forms, sound, music, language. Metatron's cube is also considered a holy glyph used to ward off evil spirits. The Kabbalah tree of life is also thought to be derived from the flower of life. And the earliest rendition, or glyph, of the flower of life can be found at Abydos in Egypt. And that is a very ancient site. In fact, it's so ancient, many new scholars are starting to think that it was prehistory. That temple is so monumental that it probably predated our written history. But the flower of life is found in China, Forbidden City, Israel, Turkey, etc. We've gone through all of that. And there is a huge representation of the flower of life. Somebody's holding it up. But you can also see how the flower of life is reflected in snowflakes. And if you recall in my previous videos on discussing the new phenomenon of flat Earth, I brought in the concept of conservation of energy and momentum in photoelectric effects. And what that brings into the equation, geometry is a flat, motionless rendition of reality. In order to fully understand how our reality works, we must also add in the dimension of the force of nature, which is spin, rotation, spin and rotation, spin and rotation. And basically, that's angular momentum, angular momentum, angular momentum is spin and rotation. I also introduced you to the Schwarzschild metric. On the left, we have the Newtonian physics of gravity, but on the right, we have a moving glyph of the Schwarzschild metric, and as you can see, it is swirling around and rotating around a center. The moment is the center, and that is basically also, if you want to go back, the center is also the event horizon of the black hole, and around everything in the event horizon, all of our reality circulates in this flower, rotating, ever amplified motion. So here is Max Planck again. Planck's dimension, that infinitesimal space and time over which all atoms jump and emerge and photons jump and emerge. Well, this is an interesting quote, and he was quite a spiritual man. When he saw science, he was in complete awe. He was awestruck by science. He says, science cannot solve the ultimate mystery of nature. And that is because in the last analysis, we ourselves are a part of the mystery that we are trying to solve. And that's a very significant quote, because when these physicists talk about the double slit experiment with the atom, how the atom is maybe a particle or it's maybe a wave, and it's spooky, spooky, spooky. It's not spooky, because what you understand in the last analysis, all measuring tools done by these physicists are made of atoms, and those atoms interact with photons. So if you're going to measure a photon, that photon is not going to act like it does without being measured. It's going through the slit, which is made of atoms. It's being measured by measuring instruments, and it's interacting in a controlled manner. But an uncontrolled photon, we don't know where it comes from or what happens to that photon. And what Max Planck is saying, we can never understand, because we ourselves are part of the atoms and the photons. And every opportunity we have to try and measure them, we contaminate or we change the experiment. So we can never know nature in its absolute, unqualified manner. Only God can know that. And so we go down to the brainy quotes of Max Planck, and I want you to remember also what he said. So remember his quote, "All matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force." A force. We must assume behind the force is existence of a conscious, intelligent mind, intelligent design. This mind is the matrix, or the mind of God, of all matter. So sometimes nature or man or science sometimes gives us a wink in how they name things. And so I started this video off by the National Oceanic Atmosphere Administration, NOAA. And what they do is basically track satellites, track the movements of weather. They basically track how our Earth is relating to the heavens. And I don't think this is just a coincidence that they called it NOAA, N-O-A-A, because I also want to remind you that the center, or the 0 point in astronomy, is called A-H. And no comes from the word none or zero. If there's none, there's zero. And at that point of 12 o'clock, or the 0 point in astronomy, it's called or Noah, the 0 point. At the beginning of this video, I introduced a new concept. It's called the axial precession, or the precession of the equinox. And what this represents is the Earth as it moves on its axis. It spins, but it doesn't move smoothly. It wobbles like the gyroscope. So as it spins, its axial movements are going this direction, and it's a smaller wobbling effect. And so it precesses, it moves through the sky in, they say, approximately a 26,000-year precession as it goes through each star section of the astrological chart, or the stars as astronomy has named them. So it will go through Aquarius and all around Virgo, Gemini, etc. And it takes 26,000 years to come back to Aquarius. And right now we are entering the age of Aquarius, as you recall from the New Agers, right? But it is true. This comes from astronomy and astrology, that very, very scary kind of science. But astronomy kind of decoupled it from its sacredness. So now it says, oh, astrology is occultish. But astronomy, absent God, or absent a direction of the universe, or absent the mind of God, somehow is the correct way of looking at it. And again, that's up to you. But I've showed you how the Bible thinks that mathematical numbers are very important. Science believes that mathematical numbers are the language of the universe, and they're the language of the Bible. So I think, as we're talking, as Karen Armstrong reminded us, that to understand the Bible, it must be done on 4 levels. The mystical the end time scenario, the allegorical, which is the morality of life, and the plain language. And this, I believe, is a guide to our greater understanding of God and how God works in our universe and our reality. So that's the puzzle I'm leaving with everybody. I'm going to do a second video and discuss what my beliefs are about all these numbers and how they introduce us to the world around us. But you too can look at this, because sevens are important. 4 is very important as the name of God. Noah, out of all the generations, came 4 couples of Noah. So these numbers, and remember, 40 days and 40 nights. 7 times 70, 77. Anyway, all these numbers are very important, and I believe they refer to particular things, and that if we know what they particularly mean, then we can understand what God is trying to tell us.
Well, you know, reading the text is a very dangerous enterprise, I think. You know, I'm all for it, of course. I spend my life reading these texts. But these texts are not easy. And they were not meant to be read in this way. Quran means recitation. You're meant to listen to it. And it's chanted in a very beautiful way. And you don't just zip through the Quran, picking out the bits on jihad or the bits that suit your ideology and proof texting everything and bringing it together. That's a very modern way of reading scripture. You listen to it. And as a Catholic child, we didn't read our Bibles much. We thought that was a rather Protestant thing to do. And it would be, but we'd listen to it in church, read in Latin, but we followed along with our translation. And it was always in a liturgical context that takes it out of ordinary, even having a foreign language, even ancient Arabic that you can't quite understand, chanted beautifully, takes it out of regular speech. And I was telling Joan the other day, I think it was you, wasn't it, that when in the convent we, after the 1960s, the Vatican Council reintroduced the vernacular, we had to start reciting chanting the divine office. We would go through the whole Psalter, all the Psalms, in English. And it was quite a face-up. You can imagine a whole huge church full of polite, upper-class, restrained English women warbling politely, "Oh God, smash their teeth in their mouths." And we suddenly realized what it was we've been chanting all these years. Almost better not to know. And, you know, some of these texts are really difficult. I mean, they are really difficult. And people don't understand how the scriptures have been interpreted over the years. They were never read literally. The Bible, until the Reformation, was to be read on 4 different levels, on the mystical level, the allegorical level, and the eschatological level, as well as on the plain sense. You didn't stick with the literal sense, you ascended to something higher and made sense of it. And that's how I was taught to read the Bible. Not seeing the book of Revelation, for example, as a countdown to Armageddon, or a sort of clear timetable as to what exactly is going to happen, and that guy must be Antichrist. This is a modern way, and it's an unskillful way, as the Buddhists would say, of reading scripture. So scripture can be an absolute menace, I think, in the wrong hands, quoted out of context, and you hear the extremists, the Muslim extremists, quoting the Quran completely out of context, missing out bits that would turn all those ferocious verses on their heads. And so I think we need to get back to a sense that scripture is as great Wilfred Cantwell Smith said, it is an activity, not a text.
You know, as I read the passages from Genesis and the story of Moses, I had an Orwellian moment. For some reason, I believed that I was reading something I didn't quite recognize, and I suddenly realized why I didn't. And the reason is that I wasn't reading the actual King James Bible translation. They said it was a King James Bible version, but it was done in modern language. And so I had to go back and take a look to see if anything different was in the Old English. And here's the Old English of the King James. And you can see that they spell VN2, U is a V, and they spell sons. Oh, look at the sevens. Sauns, sevens, is with a U. And then male and female keep seed alive, the upon the face of the earth. And yet 7 days is spelled with ES. And look, the sixes has an E. So I started to look to see if any of the numbers had been changed, because, I've been noticing this in different passages in different books. For example, the Max Planck quotes. I didn't remember Max Planck saying it was the mind of the matrix. I do recall he had said it was the mind of God in that quote. And so as Orwell, Ministry of Truth, indicates, here it is, the Ministry of Truth. It controls the information, news, and entertainment, education. Winston Smith works for the Ministry of Records, rectifying historical records to concord with Big Brother's current pronouncements so that everything in the party says is true. And that's sort of what I'm getting now with Wikipedia, and how Wikipedia is slightly altering quotes and past information. So we've got to be very careful. And again, I want you to understand the doublespeak here. The Ministry of Love identifies, monitors, arrests, and converts real and imagined dissidents, sort of like our national security state right now. In Winston's experience, the dissident is beaten and tortured, and when near broken, he is sent to room 101 to face the worst thing in the world, until love for Big Brother and the party replaces dissension. I love and hate this book, because this book, 1984 by Orwell, just makes me cry at the end because of the loss of the love between Winston and his love interest, and how a security state can truly alter the nature of the human heart into something we don't recognize.